Hey guys, I wanted to talk about the technique for a comeback route once again, like we did in training, and I want to give you guys feedback on the video I took last night and give you some tips. So once again, how do we run a comeback route? Number one is our plan for the route. With any type of comeback or curl route, we're trying to make this DB think one thing, that we're running vertical, that we're running some type of a fade, that we're running a fly. So we need to make sure that we're running in full speed and full stride, and we're really selling like we're running to the end of the field. Now, when it's time to make our break, this receiver is cutting to the right. The comeback is a three-step cut, which means his trigger step, the step in which he's gonna drop his hips violently and sink all his weight, is gonna be on his left foot. And he's gonna make this break and snap down instantly. This drop of your hips and drop of your weight needs to be extremely violent. Imagine there's a string attached to your chin, and somebody's going to pull that string straight down so your chin goes to your knees. Now, in order to not waste time and get stuck in the break, his inside foot is going to be his turn foot. And so when he makes his second step here, see how his hips are now turned 45 degrees. If he was running vertical first, now he's turned 45 degrees on his second step. So that on the third step, you can plant and push off of it and explode in the direction of your break and make a catch. Now, some common mistakes that I'm going to point out in this video for each of these steps in our plan. If we're not selling vertical, that means we're jogging or we're breaking down too soon, and it's going to be obvious to the DB that we're going to make our cut. If we're not dropping our hips violently, that means we're standing upright and we're leaning back. And when we're leaning back, that means we're going to reach with our trigger step foot, which is going to cause us to slip and be inefficient. And the last big mistake that I've noticed a lot in the videos is that after we make our cut out of the break, his shoulders are in the direction that he's running the route. You guys turned your shoulders to face Fabi a lot of times, which made you slow down severely. So let's get into the videos. Kev, I can see you know how to run the route, but I want to see more intensity from you to get really used to that hip drop, and especially with exploding out toward the quarterback to give yourself more distance between you and your DB. You kind of just stand up and half-ass the rep there. Yannic, I'd like to see you get a little bit more turn on your second step here. So here's your trigger step, hips down. Here's your second step. It's hard to tell from this camera angle, but it looks pretty vertical. And so here your push off, your hips should be in the direction of your cut, more or less already, but you still have to completely turn your hips, and as a result, you kind of round your cut there. So try to be more efficient in your second step. I see the same issue here on this cut. You're cutting to the left, which means trigger step on the right. So here's the trigger, here's the turn, here's the push off, and your hips should be facing more or less the yellow cone at this point, but they're pointed straight at the camera. And see, you have to spend a whole another 2 steps to turn yourself and get back to the ball. So yeah, efficiency with the second step would be your focus point. Marco, my boy. So here we go. Here's your trigger step, your turn step, and your plant step. You are really leaning back, brother, and I want to see you take your helmet and drop it straight down to your knee. In this position, look how off balance you are. And then the push off looks good. Way to go back in the direction. Here's another rep from you. Here's the trigger step. You're still pretty upright. I want to see you take that chin to your knee. Here's the turn step. You're leaning, and here's the push off step. So when you're leaning backwards like this means that your push off step is outside the bottom of your body, and you're prone to slipping a little bit, like you kind of did there. See that dirt kick up. So focus on staying more upright, leaning forward, and keeping your feet under your body. Okay, what up, Justin? I know I talked to you a little bit on Monday, but once again, I think your big issue is reaching outside your body and landing with your heel first. So you're running up. This is your trigger step here on your left, and look how your heel is the first thing to hit the ground outside of your body. You're dropping your weight here, but if this is your trigger step coming down, you should have your hips already sunk. So you're like almost at a 90-degree angle here. So you hit heel toe, and then here's the turn step. Also way outside your body. Look how far forward that is. Also heel toe. You want to land with the opposite. Your heel basically should not hit the ground, ideally. And then here's the turn step, heel toe. Your hips are also still facing forward. So somewhere during the second step, you need to pivot your hips so that when you get to this point, you can push off and your hips are in this direction. And yeah, the third step was once again heel to toe, and we want the opposite there. Okay, Justin, here's another rep for you. This one's going in the other direction. And it looks a lot better. So your trigger step is here on your next step. So here's the hip drop, much better. I want to see you lean a little bit more forward and bring your chin to your knee though, but better hip drop. Here's the second step, and then the under your body, and then the third step is also under your body. So from footwork perspective, this was a much better rep, but you still aren't turned yet here. So keep the footwork the same like in this rep, but on your second step, really try and get your hips turned in the direction of your cut. So when you're right here, it's just a spring off in the direction. I also want to say you also had pretty nice out routes. Okay, Tim, here's a rep from you. So from the top, it looks like you make your trigger step here. Toes up, not bad, dropping your hips there. But I think you made it with the wrong foot. Your trigger step should be with your right foot, and then this would be your turn step with your left foot, and then this would be your push off with, once again, with your right foot. But I think you did it backwards, so then you have to take another step with your right foot to get it around and be able to push off. So make sure that when you're cutting to the left, your trigger step is with your right foot, and when you're cutting to the right, your trigger step is with your left foot. Here's another rep from you, Tim. This time you're cutting to the right, which means your trigger step will have to be your left foot. This looks like your trigger step. You drop your weight here, but it's on your right foot. Here would be your turn step and your push off step. But it's hard to go this way when you push off your inside foot, basically. So you have to take an extra step here, rotate around, which causes you to be really inefficient. Also, when you come out of your break, I want your shoulders facing this direction, and I want you to run in the direction of the cones, straight back. You have your shoulders faced toward Fabi, and it's really hard to run fast like that. It also makes you a really big target for a defensive back if they're going to come down and make a play on you, and you're basically perpendicular to them. That's a really big target for them to hit. And last but not least, Gunni. I love to see the big man out there running routes. So here's our trigger step and our turn step. Not bad. And our push off. Honestly, everything looks clean. I know it's hard for the big guys, but I want to see us really drop those hips and really try and turn our hips all at once. So from a footwork perspective, I thought it looked pretty good. Just give me a catch there. I just want to see you really, really try and sink those hips. And then for all of you, if you want to practice this more, just Google YouTube trigger step drills. There's a million drills you can find on YouTube. And if you're in the weight room doing front squats, doing back squats, anything to train your quadriceps will be able to help you make this trigger step even more violently and effective so that our routes can look like this gentleman here. Okay, they won't look exactly like this gentleman because he's different than you, but we can at least try. Thanks for watching, everybody.